We are on the seventh mantra of the second Brahma. Translation of this verse is: through the sun, the producer of grains, one should adore the eternal Brahman. By the scripture, the sun, as we've been discussing, what's the sun? The sun, Savita, glorious and most dominant symbol in the sky. The real meaning of that is, as we know, it is that which impels us. It is another word for consciousness. Consciousness is outside, transcendent, and inside, immanent, in everything. Because it is consciousness that impels everything. That's the reason why it's mentioned like the sun. Let us say the sun of knowledge or something like that. They say the sun also impels everything, puts it into action, arouses people. So consciousness also does the same thing. So here it is, through the sun, through the Savita, the deity, the sun or consciousness. The translation is the producer of grains. Another translation, that sets all things in motion, that revivifies everything. Now, why did they translate it as producer? For one, we know that the sun helps in producing the grain. Everything is dark. There will not be any kind of life, producing life. Because the plant produces the grain. So it's always life that produces life. And that plant has come from a previous plant. And so this is the kind of an end, you can say, of the sequence that they're trying to say. Here we are, producer of grains, producer of life actually. Then the grains produce another plants, and then it keeps on and on. So it is a cycle there which sets all things in motion, which is important. Once you've understood this, this is the symbol which sets everything in motion and everything is running perfectly okay. Then the instruction is, one should adore eternal Brahman. Now here it is. One should adore. What does it mean by just you see in all cultures, you have the sun. And 15,000 years or whatever. And as human societies were getting out of that and dark and dismal picture of this world, trying to struggle to keep themselves warm, you have the sun now coming up and dispel. To these early people, the sun represented something huge. It represented the whole of life, and they saw the sun energizing everything. Now, when we see this, and that's the reason why, the sun, the fire was the visible representative of that sun here on earth. And I see that fire, I see that sun. So my eye also became a kind of a representative of that sun in my body. So we have three levels. The highest level where the deity exists. Then we have another level, which is the external world. And then we have the internal world here, the eye. So these three are kind of linked. Now, how do we adore? Keep on looking at the sun. There is a there is an old yogic practice that you must need to stare at the sun from sun up to sundown. It destroys the eyes, of course. But there have been yogis that have been able to do that. What the text is recommending is that you must be able to keep on witnessing that consciousness which is within you, and like that consciousness there, when you go to sleep, everything is dark, like this world outside, everything is dark, and then it rises up. So you've got to adore that sun. Now, how do we adore that sun? By, you can say, by attention. You see, when you adore something, ordinarily what do we do? Oh, I adore this book. Oh, I adore that person. What are you doing actually? You are giving more attention to that. And the more attention you keep on giving, it's a form of adoration. You come to love it. So you should generate steadfastness in that. This is the idea. You, you must adore it. You must have steadfastness in that. Now, in this year, the slight, you can say, variation in the translation. Uh, we were just talking, Bill was just talking about how do I, who paints that picture? Hmm. Yeah, who paints that picture? Yeah. So who paints this picture? But you must be saying, absorbed in that idea. Who paints that picture? Who really paints that picture? Only then can you say that reality actually paints that picture. No, you got it? No?
There's a reality that paints the picture.
Because in this Upanishad, we have seen how that one reality is like a hub, and those, when you say yoga, what happens is first thing you do, oh, that the aphorisms of yoga by Patanjali. Oh, that's a wonderful, you can say, book. But we have seen how we ought to pray and what ought to be our attitude by these few mantras. Patanjali in the yoga of aphorisms also, he talks about certain preliminary disciplines without which the results of yoga will not come to you. And they are the you can say the moral precepts, yama and niyama. That's, and in the niyama, one is to pray to God, Ishvara Pranidhana. This Upanishad is much older than the aphorisms on yoga. What the aphorist on the Yoga Sutra had done is up all these old traditions from the Upanishads, from what was being practiced by different sects of yogis, and he collated them and he put them in a kind of a sequence. These practices were already prevalent in many traditions. He never discovered anything new. He systematized everything. Yes. And of course, he was a great yogi, obviously. So here it is also mentioned karma yoga. He says that actions sanctioned by the scriptures will not bind you. You see what in the old days, suppose you did something and you say, okay, as a to counter that something which I had done, something wrongly, I'll build a kind of a tank or a hospital or a plant trees. This was called Purta, Ishta and Purta. Purta. Here it means doing some social work, some good work for society that other people will benefit. So this was also part of the yogic preparations. Many people think, oh, let us sit down quietly and meditate. No, you've not prepared yourself. You've not purified yourself by doing good works which are going to benefit society. You have not purified yourself by praying, doing all those things which are necessary for you to even sit down. Otherwise, you keep on sitting down and then you say, oh, after 5 minutes, your body is restless, and then after your mind becomes restless, and your life breath is restless. Then you wonder, oh, there's nothing in yoga. I've been doing it for a few years, and nothing happens. Well, nothing happens because you've not followed the dictates of what has been prescribed. So these five mantras are nothing but a kind of preparation. You pray to that deity, you adore that, you do a little of good work. And why? Because you are now trying to get established in that consciousness. Now, this is more or less uh, complete in the sense of the prayers and the preliminary discussions. Now comes the, you can say, the brass tacks of yoga. The sage Svetasvatara. Now he talks about just yoga. Okay. The next mantra is the eighth mantra, which gives us the idea of keeping steady the body that has its three parts. We are on page 109. Yeah. Uh, Mantra number 8. Keeping steady the body that has three parts erect and withdrawing the sense organs into the heart with the help of the mind. The enlightened person should cross over all the terrible currents by means of the float that Brahman is. So here you have keeping steady the body that has its three parts erect. The word you Triunnatam Stapya Samam Sharira. And in all the yoga treatises, Bhagavad Gita, anyway, they talk about this. Keep your body erect. Why can't we sit down like this? And first is it's a sign of attention. Suppose I tell you you've got $1 million in a lottery ticket. What? You suddenly become attentive. You become straight. Why is it necessary to become straight? As we have been discussing this, in the body we have certain life forces, and these life forces are running this body. This body is a kind of a material body, and the life forces are material forces. But then what about spirituality? Oh, when they move in one direction, when you're working in one direction, this life force, this vitality becomes material. You convert them slightly, they become spiritual. They lead you to spirituality. So, first thing is they transform your body and your nerves into a spiritual, you can say, body. Without that initial conversion, when the material forces are reoriented towards the spiritual world, you will not be able to. Your body is worldly and you're trying to meditate on God. You got to first transform your body. And how do you transform your body? There are these various practices which says that these life forces which are there running down your spinal cord, it has to rise up to the Shushumna, the Ida and the Pingala, the right and the left nostril. Is what runs the body. The, the sensory organs and the motor organs, all these things they're running the body. So when you sit down straight, what happens is you give these forces which are traveling down the spine less obstruction.
That's what.
Obstructions. You're not obstructing their flow. Because when the flow is steady, there is always a chance of these material forces then slowly getting converted into spiritual forces. When you came in, you turn the lights on. And, oh, it's dark here, and then you turn the light on. And that's the idea. You turn the lights on inside. And for that, you know where to press. You know where the switch is, you know how to press it. So this is one. You keep your spinal cord straight. So that's what's recommended. Triunnatam sthapya samam sharir. Keep the neck, this, the head, and your spinal column straight. That's the idea. This is the first condition. And then he says, the sage says, and withdrawing the sense organs into the heart with the help of the mind. The page 110, please. So mentally, what he's saying, the mind itself, with the help of the mind, mentally withdraw the sense organs into your heart. Yeah. Now that heart is a very long topic, but the idea is you are supposed to direct your mind towards your center of consciousness. We have said that the heart is a center of consciousness here. And as you direct your attention there, the senses are already yoked to the mind. They cannot live without the mind. They can in a very cross way, but generally the sensory organs are always linked to the mind. They are also dragged by that mind down to that center of consciousness. Now, why is that necessary? When the body is getting converted into spiritual body, these external forces that are leaving you and going out also need to be directed there so that their energies too can become spiritual. Later on, of course, wherever the mind goes, there it is the highest state. Yatra yatra manoyati tatra tatra samadhya. But that is after you have realized the divine. And wherever the mind goes, that you intuit, you experience a divinity. You will not see this chair and this piano, this door as such. You will see as aspects of the divinity. You will see them palpable as divinity. Swami Vivekananda was making a joke out of everything is Brahman. And then Sri Ramakrishna then touched one with heart. Huh? And then he's saying, whatever I saw was that reality. I kept quiet. And 3 days he was in that state. And he's saying, after that, I never doubted the words of the rishis. Here it was. These, when he said, this is the rishi, one of the rishis. So slowly we are now internalizing the idea of the sun, that sun, that Savitur, that's the sun of consciousness. That sun outside, ideas now internalized. There's a sun of consciousness here. We're directing our minds and our senses towards that. That's the idea. The enlightened person should cross over the terrible currents. What are the terrible currents? Oh, births and deaths, higher and lower worlds. But where are the currents? The currents are actually there within you because there are some things you have done which are in the mind, the deeper layers of the mind, as which will fructify in the future in the form of future births if they are not countered now. So these are the various currents, the terrible currents. So many experiences are there lying down. Some are just neutralized, they are there. Some have the potency to give rise to a new body, a new experiences. So this will take you up and down. And you've had enough of these kind of experiences over and over and over. And we have been traversing these. So that river that is allegorically spoken of outside, we cross over this terrible currents, terrible, you can say, terrible because it gives rise to these births. And it's actually inside. That's the flow. Tatra prashanta vahita chitta. Even Patanjali says its flow becomes steady through practice. Now, there in the yoga aphorisms, he said practice. And here he says, he gives a form of what do you practice? And he said, the raft of Brahman or the boat of Brahman. This boat is going, even in the Rig Veda, you have this the divine mother as Aditi, spoken of as a kind of a huge ship. So let us go in and she will take us across these various oceans. So what's the raft of Brahman here? The symbol of Brahman, as we have been studying this thing, is the word Om. Om is the symbol of the higher Brahman and the lower Brahman. It's a symbol of this universe. It's your symbol. Each one's symbol is that Om. Now, when we come to this now, this is the raft of Brahman. By meditating on this, you cross over this the currents of birth and death which are lying down there in your own, can say, because once you want to enter into that inner shrine of the heart, that inner level of consciousness, it is obstructed by the various impressions in the mind. So these have to be crossed. Yeah, it's like I think it's in the Greek philosophy that when you have to cross the, you can say, what's in the Greek mythology, that river Styx, and then you got to pay the boatman, and that's the reason why they used to put a coin there on the person's eyes when he dies. So that is a kind of a payment for. So where does that river, you have to cross the river, and that river takes you to the Hades, the Hades, the hell in Greek mythology. But you need to cross that river, and there you need to pay that boatman, and there. So this idea of a river is in there also in all cultures, that you the fearful, it's fearful. The ocean of samsara is fearful, full of waves. And how do you cross it? Through a raft, or through a boat. And what's that boat? It's the meditation on the symbol Om. As you keep on meditating on that symbol, slowly, that acts as a kind of a float. You are being taken slowly. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he says that Yes, the author, he has a dream, and then he sees Ramkrishna sitting in the boat, saying, no, he's seeing Sri Ramakrishna walking on the water. So he's saying, how are you walking on that water? And this person is like drowning, saying, no, no, there's a bridge under this, just beneath the surface, and so I'm walking on it. So where are you going? Wait, wait, wait. No, I'm going to Bhawanipur. That's a Bhawanipur. Bhavani is a divine mother, the the place of the abode of the divine mother. So I cannot wait for you. I'm going ahead, but there's a boat there. Get into that boat, and there it is. That boat is nothing but those spiritual practices. And the highest form of spiritual practices is meditation on that Om. It's you, it's the universe, it's the reality, the higher and lower realities also. So this is how your Svetasvatara Rishi speaks about the first, you can say, steps of yoga. Of yoga. Later on, of course, it becomes a kind of a established practice. But these are the first stirrings of this ancient science, which is now so popular all over. But then here in LA, it has become more like a kind of a physical. Uh, I was just reading that here. Come, learn, practice, and transform yoga. It is a kind of a course for teachers. I would say, transform yoga. Yeah, you learn, I can understand. You can practice, I can also understand. But transform yoga, that means you're going to modify yoga, these teachings? No, you cannot. You modify yourself, you bring yourself in line with the teachings. You follow the teaching. So what happens if you cannot aim very high, then you aim low, or you get health and you get all the various benefits of that, this and that. The old science of yoga has become so diversified and is not recognizable. This is yoga. I see. Okay. So the qualifications, rather, the person is qualified as Vidwan. So he's saying, Triunnatam stapya samam shariram hridendriyani manasa sannivesha. Make the sense organs, enter into the heart with the help of the mind. Brahma udopena pratarena vidwan. The wise person, say, will cross over this ocean, this, you can say, the enlightened, this translated enlightened, should cross over the terrible currents by means of that flow, that Brahman. So, why is that enlightened person? That person has now understood. It's not that final realization. That person's mind is now awakened. The awakening is coming gradually as the material forces running this material body are being converted into the spiritual forces. So that material intelligence of ours is being converted into a spiritual intelligence. Because Sri Ramakrishna used to say that, oh yes, the crow also is intelligent, but you know what it eats. That is intelligence, Sri Ramakrishna says, which makes God the object of its deliberations or its search. When your intellect is directed towards God, That is real intelligence. That is real unawakened intelligence. Otherwise, your intelligence is fractured and fragmented, running behind all these various objects. And we think we are very enlightened. One disciple of Sri Ramakrishna saying, have you read some of these German philosophers? He said, Schopenhauer and Kant. Sri Ramakrishna says, what are you talking about? These books were written in ignorance. Forget them. And then he takes them and immerses them in the river Ganga. So the intellect at times tries to appropriate that kind of glamour. Oh, I'm so, you know, better than the rest. I'm so sharp. I'm so this and I'm so that. I've got an IQ of this. Huh. Yeah, but it's leading you to more and more misery. That's not an intelligent person. Sir. The intelligent people are more miserable, it seems. When that intellect of ours is slowly converted by that meditation and Brahman on the silver Om, it gets converted into a spiritual. It will seek only spiritual verities. You become a seeker of truth. When you become a seeker of truth, you are on the right path. Somewhere deep down, your intellect has seen the light. Saying all this is nothing but harassment and trouble. Let's do something else. And you see what is the truth in life. And so you keep on searching and then you keep on penetrating in the center of your being, in your heart. There is a long, you can say, explanation on pranayama by the commentator. It says on page 110, pranayama is being presented because the heart of a person whose mental defects have been removed by pranayama becomes fixed in Brahman. The nerves have to be purified first. Then one acquires a fitness for pranayama. So what Swami Vivekananda says is Nadi Shuddhi. Without this initial practice of breathing, purifying the nerves, the mind cannot be. It is one of the limbs of Patanjali's eight limbed. Okay. The first is he is talking about asana. He spoke about the first two steps, yama and niyama, to all these prayers and good works and all these things. Then he spoke about asana, that is sit down straight. Okay. And then the fourth step is pranayama. Now the pranayama is like, what is pranayama? But before we can go into that pranayama here as an actual practice, the nerves have to be purified. And when do you know that the nerves are purified? You can hear them. That sound, you can hear the sound within you. You'll need less food, you'll need less sleep, your complexion becomes different. So, all these are signs that you have entered into prana. So, what is Nadi Shuddhi? You see, what happens generally in our tradition, we will say that love for God, or when you concentrate the mind, you automatically experience a kind of a breath that's held, quieted down. It has become subtle, and then you experience a kind of a kumbhaka. You might not realize you're breathing when you are meditating deeply. Your breath becomes extremely feeble. Your body is perfectly okay. When you're sitting straight, the idea is you lessen the tendency for restlessness. Your body consciousness goes down. And as you are meditating or chanting the Om, the, the mind becomes calm. As the mind becomes calm, the breath also becomes calm. They both are linked. Both are linked. When your mind is restless, your breath also becomes restless. You see, when you're angry, what happens? And you start breathing heavily. Huh? So that emotion has made the breath uh, move like a kind of a bellows. And so what happens as you keep on calming the mind, meditating, the breath also becomes slow. In the sense, its gross manifestation ceases, its material manifestation ceases, and it goes inside and it's becoming spiritual. The breath is becoming spiritual. The mind is becoming spiritual. Now, in order that the breath flows evenly, there is something called the purification of the nerves, nadi shuddhi. This nadi shuddhi is important because they say uh, without that, pranayama should not be practiced. The control of the prana. Now, it's a very vast subject. We'll take it up next week. Uh, but the preparatory stages, uh, like all books recommend, even Swami Vivekananda recommends, it's like you close the right nostril, breathe in through the left, and close the left nostril and open the right, and here again, breathe again through the right nostril, exhale to the left. So inhalation here, exhalation here, then again inhalation from the side, exhalation from the side. So there's a meter. That's the 4, 8, or 4, or depends. 8, 16, or even 64. There are various meters, and along with that, one has to even do a kind of visualization, meditate on fire or something like that. We'll get down to it later. But then, mm, here what happens? You do that in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and at night, at midnight, 4 times a day, 3 times or 4 times per, you can say, setting. That's you can say. So in 2 months or in 2 years, the nerves are purified. So as you can say, gold is, you can say, purified by burning away the dust. So similarly, the nerves become purified by this nadi shuddhi, purification of the nerves. Then later pranayama has to be taken up. But like I said, it has to be undertaken under the guidance of a competent guru who knows. Otherwise, you're going to burn your nerves out. You have nervous damage. And I have seen and I've heard of many aspirants who are a little cranky, and they have practiced pranayama without a proper guidance. You need to control your food, the type of food. You need to control your sleep. There are various preconditions. If you don't fulfill them, you cannot practice pranayama. They damage nerves. And the nerve, this is the central part of the nerve. Yeah, there. Something goes wrong. Instead of becoming calm, they become more restless. Instead of talking less, they keep on talking more. And that's a, yeah, that's a little, what's happened? You are supposed to convert your energies into spiritual energies. But exactly the opposite is happening. What's happening? So that's the reason why in our tradition, even Sri Ramakrishna dissuades us from doing this pranayama, because he's saying love for God or concentration will control the prana. It will convert the prana from the material aspect to spiritual aspect. And then uh, that's all the problem. The goal is not to control your breath. The breath enters inside and diversifies into various functions: respiration, metabolism, and all these things, carrying the nutrients. Is a manifestation of the prana. It is prana that's pumping the heart and expanding and contracting the lungs. And that gives rise to breath. The breath is, but we use it to go down deeper and deeper inside. So the next mantra, we just read it and then we can take it up the next time. There's a long, you can say, dialogue between Yagnivalkya and Gargi, sorry, that the commentator Shankaracharya has quoted. I'll just read page 114, please. 14 and 15. I'll read the verse, then next week you can take this up. One who is duly restrained in his actions should, having fully controlled the vital forces in his body, in this body, exhale through the nostrils, nose, when the vital force has become powerless. The unerring, wise person should hold this mind under control, like keeping under control a chariot to which is yoked an unruly horse. We'll go down to this, don't worry. So we stop here for now.